On Christmas Eve, a hungry child braves the bitter cold outside a mansion filled with luxury and indifference. She is humiliated by the very people who should be protecting her, but an unexpected gaze pierces the silence from the windows. What seemed like just another ordinary night becomes the start of a secret that could change everything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and let us know what city you're watching from. Now, on with the story. On Christmas Eve, the entire street felt colder than usual. The illuminated houses displayed perfect wreaths, muffled laughter, and the smell of good food wafting through closed gates. New York City breathed that contradictory magic only big cities can create. On one side, extravagant abundance. On the other, an absence that ached like an open wound. It was in this setting that a 5-year-old girl, too small to carry so much courage, stopped in. Front of a massive mansion on the Upper East Side, the kind that seems too big for the neighborhood, even when the neighborhood is made of nothing but huge houses. Her pink dress had long since lost its shine, stained with dust and rain. Her hair was a tangled mess, and her hands, red from the cold, trembled not just from hunger, but from the fear of being shooed away again. She took a deep breath, as if rehearsing a plea she had made to the world many times before, and rang the doorbell. The gate opened with the slowness, of someone deciding if it was worth seeing who was on the other side. A security guard appeared first. Impeccable uniform, radio clipped to his shoulder, the weary expression of someone at the end of their shift. Wayne, as his name tag read, looked the little girl up and down, and before she could even speak, let out a short, mocking laugh. A laugh that wasn't just his own. It belonged to an entire system that had grown used to seeing someone so small alone on the street. "Lost your family, kid?" he asked, as if commenting on the weather. The girl swallowed hard. Her pride was the only thing she still tried to protect, but hunger can tear down even an adult's walls. "Sir, I just wanted a plate of food, a piece of bread, anything." Her voice came out thin, weak, but firm enough not to sound like a joke. The security guard laughed for real this time, with relish. He pointed to the decorations, as if the scene were a spectacle. "Well, look at this. Christmas is a restaurant now? Go ask somewhere else. This isn't the place for that." And then he did the thing that tends to break a person from the inside. He called over another staff member, telling him to check out the latest attraction, as if the child were a joke to lighten up the night. The girl lowered her head, staring at the ground, trying not to cry, because for her crying was a waste of energy. But she didn't know that. Behind the mansion's enormous windows, there were eyes that weren't so distracted by the party. Inside, the house vibrated with soft music, clinking glasses, and a table that looked like a magazine spread. Turkey, desserts, fruits, dishes whose prices no way one there could remember. At the center of it all, Michael Taylor, the owner of the house, a businessman known for being tough, private, impeccably controlled, circulated like a host fulfilling an obligation. He smiled at his guests, but the smile never reached his eyes. Since an old loss, he had learned to live as if feeling were dangerous. For him, Christmas was more of a social event than a warm embrace. At 48, Michael had built an empire in real estate. Skyscrapers all over New York City bore his discreet signature. Money was never an issue, but peace was, always a rarity. A widower for nearly 6 years, he had transformed his grief into work and his work into a fortress. His only daughter, Isabella, now 23, was studying architecture in Barcelona and rarely came home. The conversations between father and daughter were cordial but distant, as if the two had signed a silent agreement not to hurt each other by trying to get closer. At tonight's party, Michael greeted business leaders, politicians, friends who weren't really friends, just useful acquaintances. Among them was his cousin Rick, a 45-year-old man who was always around when there was something to be gained. Rick worked at the company, holding an important position, but everyone knew his last name carried more weight than his competence. He moved through the room with the air of someone who felt he owned the place, speaking loudly, laughing too much, making sure everyone remembered he was family. Beside him, Julianne, the head housekeeper, a 52-year-old woman as rigid as steel, had run the house with an iron fist since Michael's wife was still alive. Julianne knew every corner of the property, every secret tucked away in drawers, every unspoken word in the hallways. She protected the order of the house as if it were a kingdom, and any threat to that order was eliminated with silent efficiency. Until, by chance, Michael overheard the laughter from outside. It was an off-key sound, an aggressive laugh that didn't belong with Christmas carols. Michael stopped in the middle of the room and, on reflex, walked to the window. The curtain was partially open, and the glow from the gate lights cast shadows on the lawn. He saw the little girl. He saw how small she was in front of the gate. He saw the security guard mocking. He saw the gesture of contempt. And most of all, he saw the child's posture as she tried not to fall apart, as if she were already used to being treated like a nuisance. For a second, the entire room disappeared. Michael's hand tightened on the curtain fabric. He wasn't an impulsive man, but something about that scene pierced his armor like a silent blade. There was something about that girl, something he couldn't name, but that pulled at him with an inexplicable force. And when he turned from the window, he didn't just walk, he strode with purpose. What no one expected was that, instead of ordering someone to handle it as wealthy people usually do, he went to the front door himself. The music continued inside. The guests didn't even notice their host disappearing, but the staff did. Julianne, in her impeccable black suit and hair pulled back in a severe bun, tried to intervene with a look that said, "This is not appropriate." Gerald, Michael's personal assistant, a meticulous man who was constantly worried about his boss's image, approached quickly, whispering something about exposure and risk. Even Rick, holding a glass of champagne, muttered that the poor just bring trouble. Michael didn't answer any of them. When the door opened, the warm light from the mansion spilled onto the sidewalk as if the house were breathing. Wayne, the security guard, still smiling, turned, ready to strike a pose for his boss. But Michael's expression wasn't that of someone who had come to validate the humiliation. It was the face of someone who had come to stop an invisible crime. "What's going on out here?" His voice was low, but sharp as broken glass. The guard, caught off guard, tried to laugh again, this time nervously. "Oh, Mr. Taylor, it's just a little girl asking for food. I was about to send her on her way. You know how it is, if you give them an inch, they take a mile." Michael looked at him slowly, a look that was punishment in itself. "You thought this was funny?" he asked, far too calmly. The guard stammered. He tried to justify himself, saying it was procedure, that making exceptions leads to chaos, that some people take advantage. Canned phrases, repeated by those who have learned to dehumanize in order to do their job. Michael then knelt down to her level as if the whole world could wait, and only she mattered in that moment. The girl slowly raised her eyes. Her face was dirty, yes, but her eyes were ancient, the eyes of someone who had seen too much, too soon. "What's your name?" he asked, then corrected himself, remembering how questions can hurt. "No, never mind. Just tell me, are you alone?" She hesitated, as if the truth were dangerous. I have nowhere to go," she confessed. "Everyone's eating tonight. I just wanted a little bit so my stomach won't hurt when I sleep." And she pointed to her belly with devastating simplicity. Michael closed his eyes for a second. It wasn't pity. It was a memory he kept buried, and that came rushing back that night. Julianne appeared behind him, rigid, with that voice that brooked no argument. "Mr. Taylor, this isn't safe. The house is full of guests, important people. It could cause embarrassment." Gerald, the assistant, whispered something about cameras, about how the press could twist it, how it could become a scandal on social media. Rick, further back, let out a venomous comment that cut through the, "So, are you really bringing a beggar inside on Christmas? What an example, cousin." And then came the first major twist. Michael not only ignored them all, but did something unthinkable for a man known for controlling every detail of his life. He stood up, looked Wayne directly in the eye, and said, loud enough for the approaching staff to hear, "You're fired." Wayne tried to argue, his voice rising in desperation. He tried to say he'd worked there for years, that he'd always followed orders, that he was just doing his job. But the word fired fell like a bell in the cold night. And there in front of the gate, Michael exposed the truth no one wanted to admit. It wasn't about a child asking for food. It was about the kind of people the house chose to be. The second twist came immediately after, when he took off his own jacket, an expensive Italian wool coat, and placed it over the girl's shoulders. She stiffened, unused to a kind gesture, as if affection were forbidden. "You're coming inside," he said. I can't, I'm dirty," she murmured, ashamed. "There's water inside. There are towels. There's food. And, above all, there are too many people in here to let a child go hungry outside," he replied. And it didn't sound like a pretty phrase. It sounded like a life decision. When he led her inside, gently holding her small, cold hand, the entire mansion seemed to hold its breath. The guests in the living room turned their heads. Some looked on with poorly disguised disgust, others with morbid curiosity, still others with that false altruism of those who are moved but never get close. Rick made sure to comment loud enough to be heard. "I always knew my cousin was a little off. Now I'm sure of it." Julianne tried to resolve the situation quickly, with the icy efficiency she had mastered. She approached, trying to lead the girl to the back of the house, to the service area, away from the guests' eyes, as if poverty were dirt that could stain the Italian marble. But Michael held the housekeeper's arm firmly. "She'll eat in the main kitchen, and she'll take a bath in one of the guest rooms. Prepare everything." Julianne opened her mouth to protest, but something in Michael's expression made her back down. She just nodded, her thin lips forming a disapproving line, and walked away with quick, irritated steps. The girl was taken to the mansion's enormous gourmet kitchen, a space that looked more like a design studio, all white and stainless steel. Regina, the cook, a 60-year-old woman with a soft heart and hands calloused from kneading dough, widened her eyes when she saw the child. Unlike the others, she didn't hesitate. She just got a plate, filled it generously, and placed it in front of the girl with a genuine smile. "Eat slowly, honey, the food's not going anywhere." The girl did, eat slowly, but not because of the advice. She ate like someone afraid the food would disappear if she ate too fast, savoring each bite as if it were her last. Her small hands trembled as she held the silverware, and every so often she would look up, as if expecting someone to snatch the plate away at any moment. Meanwhile, in the living room, the party continued, but the atmosphere had changed. The guests were whispering. Michael had disappeared again, and rumors were flying. He'd gone crazy. He was having a breakdown. This was what happens when you don't get over the loss of your wife. Rick seized the opportunity to plant seeds of doubt, commenting to important business partners that maybe it was time to question whether Michael still had the clarity to run his businesses. But there was someone who was even more disturbed than all the others. Anthony, the mansion's gardener, a simple 65-year-old man who had worked there for over 20 years, had seen the girl up close when she came in. He was arranging the plants in the entryway, and when the chandelier light hit her small face, Anthony turned pale. His hands, strong, from years of digging, began to tremble. He dropped his watering can, nearly spilling it, and went in search of Michael, his heart pounding. He found him in the hallway leading to the kitchen, watching the girl from a distance, as if he couldn't pull himself away. "Mr. Taylor," Anthony began, his voice low and urgent, "I need to talk to you. It's about the girl." Michael turned, frowning. "What about her?" Anthony swallowed, choosing his words carefully. I know that child. I mean, I don't know her, but sir, she looks so much like—" He paused as if the words were too dangerous to say out loud. "Like who, Anthony?" Michael asked, his voice growing tense. The gardener looked around, making sure they were alone. "Like Mrs. Beatrice, sir. She has the same eyes, the same way she tilts her head when she's scared. I worked here when Mrs. Beatrice was alive. I remember every detail. And this girl, she's the spitting image of her as a child." Michael felt the floor drop out from under him. Beatrice, his late wife, the woman he had loved with an intensity that still hurt even after 6 years, the woman who was gone so suddenly, so unexpectedly, leaving a hole that nothing had ever filled. "Are you saying that—" Michael tried to form the question, but the words tangled. "I'm saying this girl might have some connection to Mrs. Beatrice's family, sir. And—" Anthony hesitated, lowering his voice even more. "There's something else." I saw Mrs. Julianne going through the guest room where the girl is staying. She was looking for something or hiding something, I don't know, but I thought it was strange. Michael felt a wave of heat rise in his chest. It wasn't anger, yet it was something more primitive, a protective instinct he didn't know he still had. He walked back to the kitchen, pushed the door open slowly, and watched the girl. She had finished eating and was now talking quietly with Regina, who was gently cleaning her dirty face with a damp cloth. "What's your name, sweetie?" Michael asked, his voice softer than he thought he was capable of. The girl looked at him with those huge, still wary eyes. "Sophia," she said. "My name is Sophia." "Sophia," Michael repeated, and somehow the name sounded familiar, like an echo of something he had heard before in another life. "And who took care of you, Sophia? Do you have a family?" The girl looked down, her small fingers playing with the hem of her dirty dress. "Aunt Helen took care of me, but she had to go away. She said she couldn't have me around anymore. She said it was dangerous." "Dangerous?" Michael felt a chill. "Dangerous how?" Sophia shrugged, her voice dropping even lower. "I don't know. But before she left, she gave me a piece of paper. She told me to keep it safe. She said one day I need it." Michael knelt in front of her. "Do you still have that paper?" Sophia hesitated, looking around as if she were afraid of being caught doing something wrong. Then, slowly, she reached into the torn pocket of her dress and pulled out a crumpled, dirty piece of paper. She held it out to Michael with both hands, as if presenting a treasure. Michael carefully unfolded the paper, and what he read made his world stop spinning. It was a birth certificate, a partially torn certificate with some data smudged, but with enough information to make his heart race. The mother's name was illegible, but there was a handwritten note on the side in a script he knew all too well. "Beatrice, take care of this child. She is a part of you, even if you never knew." Michael's hands trembled. He read and reread the words, trying to process the impossible. Beatrice, his wife. How could she be involved in this? Who was this child? What secret had his wife carried? And then a memory returned, sharp and painful. 6 months before Beatrice passed away, she had become strange, distant. She said she was tired, that she needed time. She traveled alone to a small town in rural Pennsylvania, a place she never really explained why she wanted to visit. She was there for 2 weeks. When she returned, she was different, quieter, carrying an invisible weight. Michael tried to ask, but she always deflected, always promised she would tell him one day. That day never came. Michael looked up at Sophia, and now he saw not just an abandoned child, but a mystery connected to the woman he loved most. The room seemed to spin. Suddenly this girl wasn't just someone who needed help, she was a key. A key to a door Michael didn't even know existed. Outside in the living room the party continued, but in the heart of that mansion, a truth was beginning to emerge, dangerous and inevitable. And as Michael held that paper in his hands, feeling the weight of revelations yet to come, he didn't know that someone else had already seen what he had seen. Someone who would now do anything to make that paper disappear. Julianne was standing in the shadow of the hallway, her eyes fixed on Michael and the girl, her face as pale as chalk. She had seen the paper, she had seen his reaction, and now hurriedly she pulled her phone from her pocket and typed a quick message to an unnamed number. "She's here. He saw the document. We need to act fast." The reply came in seconds. "Do what's necessary. That child cannot stay." Julianne put her phone away, took a deep breath, and walked back into the living room with her face impeccably controlled, as if nothing had happened. But inside, she knew. The war had begun. And in this war, Sophia was the prize that no one could afford to lose. The dawn arrived slowly, as if afraid to wake the secrets that Christmas Eve had unearthed. The mansion, once loud with music and champagne-fueled voices, now breathed in a heavy silence, the kind that seems to hold unspoken confessions. The last guests had left hours ago, leaving behind empty glasses, crumpled napkins, and malicious comments that still echoed through the hallways like invisible ghosts. Michael hadn't slept. He hadn't even tried. He had spent the entire night locked in his study, Sophia's birth certificate on the desk, illuminated by the cool light of a lamp. He read that paper so many times he knew every comma, every smudge, every word that seemed to have been written in a hurry, as if by someone afraid of being discovered. Beatrice's handwriting was there, firm yet trembling, as if she had held the pen in fear of what she was writing. "Beatrice, take care of this child. She is a part of you, even if you never knew." The words didn't make sense, or they made too much sense, and Michael simply didn't want to accept what they suggested. Beatrice had kept a secret big enough for someone now to try, to erase its traces. But who? And why? Michael stood up, his muscles aching with tension, and walked to the window. Outside, the lawn was covered in a cold dew that sparkled under the lampposts. Everything seemed peaceful, but he knew the tranquility was a lie. Julianne had acted too quickly the night before. The look in her eyes when she saw the paper, the way she walked away without a word, but with everything written on her face. She knew something, and worse, she was protecting someone. Michael picked up the phone and dialed Gerald, his assistant. It was 5 in the morning, but that didn't matter. Gerald's sleepy, irritated voice answered on the third ring. "Mr. Taylor, is something wrong?" "I want you to investigate someone," Michael said without preamble. "Helen, I don't have a last name, but she was taking care of Sophia, the girl I brought home yesterday. I want to know who she is, where she lives, who she's connected to. And, Gerald," he paused, "be discreet. I don't want anyone to know I'm looking." Gerald hesitated on the other end of the line. "Sir, with all due respect, are you sure you want to get involved in this? I mean, the girl showed up out of nowhere, no papers, nothing. It could be a setup. Some people use children to run scams on wealthy people. You know that." Michael closed his eyes, breathing deeply to control his irritation. "I didn't ask for your opinion, Gerald. I asked for an investigation. Can you do it, or do I need to find someone who can?" The line was silent for 2 long seconds. "I'll do it, sir. Give me until the end of the day." Michael hung up without saying goodbye and returned to his desk. He opened a side drawer and took out an old photograph, kept in an envelope yellowed with time. It was a picture of Beatrice, taken on a random afternoon during a trip they took to Newport, Rhode Island. She was facing away, looking at the horizon, the wind messing up her brown hair. Michael had always loved that photo because it captured something Beatrice rarely showed, a deep melancholy, as if she were always carrying an invisible weight. He never understood that weight. Now, looking at Sophia sleeping in the guest room upstairs, he wondered if he was finally close to finding out. Sophia had been placed in one of the most beautiful rooms in the house, with a king-size bed, a down comforter, and a lovely view of the garden. Regina, the cook, had insisted on bathing her personally, with a maternal gentleness that made the girl relax for the first time. After her bath, dressed in a makeshift pajama, made from an old T-shirt of Isabella's that Regina found in a closet, Sophia had fallen asleep almost instantly, as if her body had finally been given permission to rest. But even in her sleep, Sophia seemed alert. Her brow was furrowed, her small hands clenched into fists, as if she were defending herself from something even in her dreams. Michael went up the stairs slowly, his steps muffled by the Persian rug, and stopped at the bedroom door. He pushed it open slightly and just stood there watching. Sophia was sleeping on her side, curled up like a frightened puppy. He felt something stir in his chest, a strange tenderness he hadn't felt in years. Since Isabella grew up and drifted away, since Beatrice was gone, Michael had forgotten what it was like to care for someone unconditionally. And then, on an impulse he hadn't planned, Michael entered the room, pulled up a chair and sat beside the bed. He stayed there, just watching Sophia's peaceful breathing, and for the first time in 6 years, he cried. He cried silently, without sobs, just heavy tears rolling down his face. He cried for the wife he had lost. He cried for the daughter who had grown distant. He cried for all the years he had spent building walls instead of bridges. And he cried because somehow, inexplicably, that little girl had awakened something in him he had sworn never to feel again: hope. When the sun finally rose, painting the sky orange and pink, Michael was still there, sitting beside Sophia. She woke up slowly, her eyes opening in confusion, as if she didn't know where she was. When she saw Michael, she tensed for a moment, but then he smiled, a tired but genuine smile, and she relaxed. "Good morning, Sophia," he said softly. "Good morning, mister," she replied, her voice still hoarse from sleep. "You can call me Michael." Sophia nodded, but there was hesitation there, as if names were too intimate to be shared so quickly. "Would you like some breakfast?" Michael asked. Sophia's eyes lit up, but she contained her enthusiasm, as if showing desire were dangerous. "Can I?" "You can. And today, you don't have to ask permission for anything, okay? You're safe here." Sophia looked at him with those huge, ancient eyes, and for the first time a tiny, almost imperceptible smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Downstairs, the kitchen was already bustling. Regina was preparing breakfast with her usual care. Warm rolls, homemade cornbread muffins, fresh fruit, natural juices. But the mood wasn't festive. Julianne was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking her black coffee without sugar, her face shut tight like a locked door. She hadn't slept well, and it showed in the faint, dark circles her makeup couldn't completely hide. Anthony, the gardener, came in through the back door carrying a toolbox. He greeted Regina with a nod, but when he saw Julianne, he hesitated. There was something in the air, an electric tension that made everyone uncomfortable. "Good morning, Mrs. Julianne," Anthony said, just to be polite. Julianne looked up, and the glare she shot the gardener could have frozen water. "Anthony, I hope you've learned to be discreet after all these years working here." Anthony frowned. "I've always been discreet, Mrs. Julianne. You know that." "Then keep being discreet," she said, her voice low but sharp as a razor. "Especially about the girl. I don't know what you told Mr. Taylor yesterday, but I hope it was just a casual observation, nothing more." Anthony felt his blood boil. He was a simple man, but he wasn't a fool. He knew a threat when he heard one. "I just said what I saw, Mrs. Julianne, and what I saw seemed important." Julianne stood up, setting her cup on the table with a sharp clink. "Important or not, this house has an order, and that order must be maintained. I hope you understand that." She left the kitchen without waiting for a reply, her heels clicking firmly on the porcelain floor. Regina let out a long sigh, shaking her head. "That woman is hiding something ugly, Anthony. I've worked here for 15 years, and I've never seen her so nervous." Anthony nodded thoughtfully. "I know, and I bet it has to do with the girl. Did you see how Mr. Taylor looked at her? It's like he saw a ghost, or worse, like he saw someone he knew." Just then, Michael entered the kitchen with Sophia by his side. The girl was wearing the same makeshift clothes from the night before, but her face was clean, her hair was combed, and there was something different about her, a quiet dignity that hunger and abandonment hadn't managed to steal. Regina smiled broadly and immediately started filling a plate. "Sit here, my sweet girl. Today you're going to eat until that little tummy can't hold another bite." Sophia sat down slowly, still getting used to the kind treatment. Michael sat beside her, and for the first time in years he had breakfast without reading the newspaper, without checking emails, without thinking about business. He just watched Sophia discover the taste of warm rolls, of cornbread muffins, of freshly squeezed orange juice. "Is it good?" he asked. Sophia nodded enthusiastically, her mouth too full to speak. It was at that moment that Rick walked into the kitchen, dressed in expensive workout clothes, his hair impeccably styled even at that early hour. He stopped at the door, looked at Michael and Sophia, and let out a short, mocking laugh. "Wow, cousin, I didn't know you'd become a social worker." Michael looked up, his expression hardening. "Good morning, Rick." Rick ignored the cold tone and continued, pouring coffee into a cup. "You know, I was thinking, do you really think this is a good idea? Bringing a street kid into the house? We know nothing about her. She could have diseases. She could be used by someone to scam you. Have you thought about that?" Michael took a deep breath, controlling his irritation. "I have, and I've decided I'm going to help her anyway." Rick laughed, shaking his head. "You've always been stubborn, Michael, but sometimes stubbornness and stupidity go hand in hand. I just hope you don't regret this." And then, before leaving, Rick glanced at Sophia, a cold, calculating look, as if he were assessing a threat. Sophia shrank in her chair, her fork stopping mid-air. Michael noticed, and something inside him ignited, a rage he didn't know he was still capable of feeling. He stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Rick, a word." Rick turned, an eyebrow raised. "Go on." Outside. The two men went out to the garden, and the tension was so palpable that even the birds seemed to fall silent. Rick lit a cigarette, too relaxed for someone about to be confronted. "What is it, cousin? Going to give me a lecture?" Michael took a step forward, invading Rick's personal space. "I'm only going to say this once. That girl is under my protection. Anything you do, any snide comment, any attempt to intimidate her, and you will be out of this house and this company faster than you can blink. Understand?" Rick took a long drag, his eyes narrowed. "I understand, but you're making a mistake, Michael. A big one. And by the time you realize it, it'll be too late." He threw the cigarette on the ground, crushed it with his expensive shoe, and went back inside, leaving Michael alone in the garden, his heart pounding in his chest. Inside, Sophia had finished eating and was now talking quietly with Regina, who was cleaning the kitchen. The girl was sharing scattered things, fragments of memories, about the Aunt Helen who took care of her, about the streets where she slept, about the cold that ached in her bones. Regina listened attentively, her heart aching. "And your mother, sweetie? Do you know where she is?" Regina asked gently. Sophia was quiet for a moment, her eyes fixed on the table. "Aunt Helen said my mum was a very good lady, but that she had to go away when I was born. She said it was dangerous for her to stay." "Dangerous how?" Regina pressed, but softly. "I don't know, but Aunt Helen always said that one day I would understand, that one day someone would recognize me and take care of me." Regina felt a shiver. This was all too strange, too convenient. As if Sophia had been deliberately led to this house on this specific night. If you were in Michael's shoes, would you have taken Sophia into your home without knowing who she really was, or would you have been suspicious and acted differently? Let us know in the comments. Meanwhile, upstairs, Julianne was in Michael's study, rummaging through drawers with nervous haste. She was looking for something specific. Her hands trembled as she sifted through papers, opened folders, checked documents, until she found it, an old dark wooden box locked with a small padlock. Julianne took a bobby pin and, with surprising skill, forced the lock until she heard a click. Inside the box were letters, dozens of old letters yellowed with time, all addressed to Beatrice. Julianne picked one up and began to read, her eyes scanning the lines quickly. What she read made her face turn pale. She pocketed the letter, closed the box quickly, and left the study, her heart racing. She had to warn someone who had just as much to lose as she did if the truth came out. She took out her phone and dialed a familiar number. "It's me," she said as soon as the call was answered. "We have a problem, a serious problem. That girl, she's not just any girl, she's—" She paused, checking if she was alone in the hallway. "She's Camilla's daughter." On the other end of the line, there was a heavy silence. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I found the letters. Beatrice knew everything. And if Michael finds out, if he puts the pieces together, everything will fall apart. Everything." The voice on the other end became hard, decisive. "Then don't let him find out. Do what's necessary. That child cannot stay." Julianne hung up, breathing heavily. She knew what needed to be done. She knew she had to act fast. But for the first time in all her years working in that house, she felt something she had never felt before, fear. Because this time, it wasn't just about protecting secrets. It was about protecting her own life. And as Julianne descended the stairs with her face carefully composed, feigning normalcy, Michael returned to the house, unaware that, at that very moment, someone had already decided that Sophia needed to disappear. The rest of the morning passed in a deceptive calm. Michael decided to stay home, a rarity for a man who usually worked even on holidays. He cancelled all his meetings, ignored insistent calls from partners and clients, and dedicated the entire day to Sophia. He took her to see the garden, showed her the flowers that Anthony cultivated with such care, and let her run barefoot on the grass still damp with dew. Sophia laughed, a clear, pure sound that echoed through the garden like long-forgotten music. Michael watched it all from a chair on the porch, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to simply be present, not thinking about the next deal, the next problem, the next challenge, just watching a little girl discover the joy of being a child. Anthony was working not far away, pruning the rose bushes, but his eyes were watchful. He saw when Sophia stopped in front of a specific rose bush, a bush of white roses that Beatrice had planted years ago. The girl reached out her small hand and touched the petals gently, and then, without anyone having taught her, she began to sing a little song under her breath. An old song, the kind passed down from grandmother to mother, from mother to daughter. Anthony dropped his pruning shears. That song. He knew that song. It was the song Beatrice used to sing when she was alone in the garden, thinking no one was listening. A song about longing, about distance, about impossible loves. How did that little girl know that song? Anthony looked at Michael and saw that he had heard it too. Michael's face was pale, his eyes fixed on Sophia with a mixture of astonishment and pain. "Sophia," Michael called, his voice strained. "Who taught you that song?" Sophia stopped singing, startled by the intensity in his voice. I don't know. I think Aunt Helen, or maybe I've always known it. I don't remember." Michael stood up, his legs trembling. He walked over to Sophia and knelt in front of her, gently holding her delicate shoulders. "Sophia, you need to tell me everything you remember about Aunt Helen. Everything, no matter how small it seems. Can you do that?" Sophia nodded, her big eyes filled with confusion and a little fear. She didn't understand why that song was important, but she could tell that it was. Aunt Helen was a pretty lady, long black hair. She always smelled like jasmine. She took care of me for as long as I can remember. We lived in a tiny place far from here. There was an old church nearby with a broken bell, and she always said that one day when I got bigger, she would tell me a story about a very brave woman who made a difficult choice to protect the one she loved. Michael felt his chest tighten. This all felt scripted, purposeful, as if Sophia had been prepared for this moment. "And what else did Aunt Helen tell you?" Sophia thought for a moment, biting her lower lip. "She said I was special, that there were people looking for me, good people and bad people, and that I had to be careful, because not everyone who smiles is a friend." Michael exchanged a quick look with Anthony. The gardener nodded slowly as if confirming a suspicion. Just then, Regina appeared at the kitchen door, waving to Michael. "Mr. Taylor, Gerald is on the phone. He says it's urgent." Michael hesitated. He didn't want to leave Sophia alone, but he needed that information. He stood up, asked Anthony to keep an eye on the girl, and went inside. Gerald was on the phone, his voice tense. "Sir, I got some information on this Helen. Her full name is Helen Carter, 32 years old, from a small town in Pennsylvania. Worked as a nurse in a hospital there until 2 years ago. After that, she vanished from the records. No active bank account, no fixed address, nothing. It's like she just disappeared." Michael gripped the phone tighter. "And Sophia? Did you find anything on her?" Gerald sighed. "That's where it gets complicated, sir. The birth certificate you have is partial, torn. I tried to cross-reference the data, but it doesn't match anything in the system. It's as if this girl doesn't officially exist, or someone covered her tracks very well." Michael closed his eyes, processing the information. "Keep digging. I want to know everything about Helen Carter. Where she lived, who she was involved with, why she disappeared, everything." "Sir, can I ask a question?" Gerald hesitated. "You're getting very involved in this. Are you sure this is what you want? Because once you start digging, you might not like what you find." Michael looked out the window, saw Sophia playing with the flowers, so small and fragile, yet carrying such a huge mystery. "I'm already involved, Gerald. There's no turning back." He hung up the phone and stood there, trying to piece together a puzzle that seemed to have no end. Beatrice, Helen, Sophia, Camilla. All these names danced in his head like ghosts, begging to be connected. In the afternoon, when the sun was high and warm, Michael decided to take Sophia to buy clothes. She couldn't keep wearing makeshift outfits. She needed things of her own, new things, things that said someone cared. When he announced the idea, Julianne tried to intervene, arguing that it wasn't appropriate, that people would talk, that it could turn into a scandal. But Michael ignored her completely, grabbed the car keys, and took Sophia to the nearest mall. It was the first time Sophia had been in a place so big, so full of lights and colors and people. She walked glued to Michael's side, her eyes wide, taking it all in with a mixture of fascination and fear. Michael held her small hand firmly, providing a sense of security. "We're going to pick out some really pretty clothes for you, okay?" he said, smiling. Sophia looked at him with those enormous eyes. But I don't have any money to pay." Michael knelt in front of her, right there in the middle of the busy mall corridor. "You don't need money, Sophia. I'm giving them to you as a gift, because that's what people do when they care about someone. They give gifts without expecting anything in return." Sophia blinked rapidly, as if holding back tears. "Why do you care about me? I'm nobody." Michael felt his heart break. He held her small face in his hands as gently as if he were holding something precious. "You are somebody, Sophia. You are important, and I'm going to prove it to you every day until you believe it." They bought clothes, shoes, toys Sophia didn't even know existed. With each new item, she would ask if he was sure, if it wasn't too expensive, if he wouldn't regret it. And each time Michael would repeat that he was sure, that it wasn't too expensive, that he would never regret it. When they returned home, it was late afternoon. Sophia was exhausted but happy, clutching a teddy bear Michael had bought her. She fell asleep in the car, her head resting against the seatbelt, and Michael drove slowly, wanting to prolong that moment of peace. But when they arrived at the mansion, the peace was over. Rick was in the living room, accompanied by two men Michael didn't know. One was a lawyer. That much was obvious from his leather briefcase and expensive suit. The other seemed to be some kind of social worker or government representative. Michael parked the car, lifted Sophia, still sleeping, into his arms, and entered the house through a side door. But Julianne intercepted him in the hallway, her face tense. "Mr. Taylor? Mr. Rick has visitors. They say they need to speak with you. It's about the girl." Michael felt a wave of anger rise. "Tell them to wait. I'm going to put Sophia to bed first." He took Sophia to her room, laid her gently on the bed, covered her with the soft comforter, and stood there for a moment just watching. She looked so peaceful sleeping, so far from the dangers that surrounded her. When he finally went down to the living room, Michael was ready for war. Rick stood up as soon as he saw him, a fake smile on his lips. "Michael, these are Mr. Paul Miller, an attorney specializing in family law, and Mr. Charles Anderson from Child Protective Services. They're here because I, as a family member, thought it was prudent to consult them about the girl's irregular situation." Michael looked at his cousin with a contempt he didn't try to hide. "You called CPS without consulting me?" Rick spread his arms, feigning innocence. "Cousin, I'm just thinking about what's best for her. And for you. You can't just pick a child off the street and bring her home. There are protocols. There are laws. And if you don't follow them, you could be in serious trouble." The man from CPS, Charles, stepped forward. He was a man in his 50s, with the tired face of someone who had seen too much tragedy. "Mr. Taylor, I understand your intention to help, but Mr. Rick is right. The child needs to be registered, evaluated. We need to know her background, if she has family looking for her, if she's in a high-risk situation. We can't just leave her here without following legal procedures." Michael crossed his arms, his jaw tight. "She has no family. She is in a high-risk situation, but not here. Here she's safe." The lawyer, Paul, adjusted his glasses and spoke in that professional, cold voice. "Mr. Taylor, with all due respect, you do not have legal guardianship of this child. Technically, what you're doing could be characterized as kidnapping." The word dropped into the room like a bomb. Michael took a step forward, his eyes flashing. "Kidnapping? I saved that girl from the street, from hunger, from the cold, and you come here and accuse me of kidnapping?" "No one is accusing you, Mr. Taylor." Charles tried to calm him. But please, understand, we have to follow protocol. The girl will need to be evaluated and she will need to be placed temporarily in state care while we investigate her situation." "In state care," Michael repeated, his voice thick with sarcasm. "You mean a shelter? You want to take her from a home where she's being cared for, fed and protected, and throw her into a crowded shelter?" Charles sighed wearily. "It's not that simple, Mr. Taylor. But yes, temporarily. Until we can regularize the situation, she would have to go to a shelter." Michael felt his world crumble. He looked at Rick and understood everything. This wasn't about following protocol. It was about getting Sophia away from him. It was about keeping the secrets buried. "Get out of my house," Michael said, his voice low but dangerous. "Mr. Taylor," Charles tried to argue, "get out of my house now." The lawyer and the CPS worker exchanged uncomfortable glances. Rick smiled, knowing he had planted the seed of doubt. "Michael, be reasonable. You can't fight the law." "I can, and I will." Michael walked to the door and opened it. "And all of you, get out now, before I have security remove you by force." The men left, but before they did, Charles left a card on the table. "Mr. Taylor, I understand you want to help. But please, think with a clear head. The child's well-being comes first. We'll be back tomorrow with a court order, if necessary." When the door closed, Michael was left alone in the room, trembling with anger and fear. Rick had played dirty, and worse, he had the law on his side. But Michael wasn't going to give up. He wasn't going to let them take Sophia. Because he knew deep down that if she left, the truth would leave with her. And this time he wasn't going to let the truth escape. That night, Michael couldn't sleep a wink. He stayed in his study until dawn, surrounded by law books, researching legal precedents, trying to find a loophole, a way to legally keep Sophia. But every article he read, every law he studied, pointed to the same devastating conclusion. Without legal guardianship, without proper documentation, he had no rights over the girl. And worse, if CPS returned with a court order, he would be forced to hand her over. Unless he found the truth. Unless he could prove that Sophia had a real connection to him, to Beatrice, to this family. But how could he prove something he didn't even fully understand himself? Michael looked at the letters from Beatrice he had retrieved from the locked box. There were so many, written over years, carefully saved. He had never read them, respecting his wife's privacy even after she was gone. But now he had no choice. He opened the first letter, dated almost 7 years ago, and began to read. "My dearest sister Camilla." The letter began, and Michael felt the air leave his lungs. Camilla, Beatrice's sister, the sister he had never met because Beatrice rarely spoke of her family. She said they had grown apart years ago, that it was for the best, that some distances protect more than they hurt. "I know you asked me not to contact you, but I need you to know I'm trying to find your daughter. I know you were forced to leave her. I know you had no choice. I know they made you believe it was for the best. But Camilla, a mother never forgets. And I promised you, on that terrible night, that I would protect this child from afar, that I would make sure she was okay even if you couldn't be near. I'm still looking. Don't give up on me. Don't give up on her. With love, Beatrice." Michael read and reread the letter, his hands shaking. So Sophia was Camilla's daughter, Beatrice's niece. The niece Beatrice had been secretly trying to protect. But why? Why did Camilla have to abandon her own daughter? And who forced her to do it? He opened another letter, more recent, from just a few months before Beatrice passed away. "Camilla, I found a woman named Helen. She works at a hospital in Pennsylvania. She knows your story, she knows the girl. She offered to take care of her until we can sort all this out. I trust her. But Camilla, you need to know. They are still looking. They still want to erase all traces. You need to stay hidden, and so does the girl. I promise that when the time is right, when it's safe, I will bring her close. I will give her the life you wanted to give her. Hold on. Beatrice." Michael closed his eyes, the pain in his chest almost unbearable. Beatrice had carried this secret alone. She had protected her hidden niece, had dealt with threats, with dangers, and had never told him anything. Why? Because she didn't trust him? Or because she was trying to protect him too? There was one more letter, the last one, written just days before Beatrice died. The handwriting was shaky, rushed. Camilla, if you're reading this, it's because something happened to me. I need you to know. I've left instructions for Helen to bring the girl to Michael when she turns 5. That's the safe age. Michael is a good man. He will protect her even without knowing the whole truth. I've left him clues. I left this letter. I left the certificate. I left the song only we knew. He will understand. He always understands, even when it takes him a while. Take care of yourself, my sister, and know that your daughter will grow up loved. That I promise. Beatrice. Michael felt the tears fall uncontrollably. Beatrice had planned everything. She had orchestrated this meeting even after she was gone. She had trusted him to do what she couldn't, save Sophia. But there was one piece that still didn't fit. Who were they? Who was threatening Camilla? Who wanted to erase the traces? And most importantly, why were Rick and Julianne so desperate to get Sophia away? Michael picked up the phone and called Gerald, even though it was 3 a.m. I need you to investigate Camilla, Michael said as soon as Gerald answered, his voice sleepy. Camilla, Beatrice's sister. I want to know where she is, what happened to her, everything. Sir, it's 3 a.m, Gerald protested. I know what time it is, Gerald, and I know I'm asking a lot, but this is urgent. I have until tomorrow afternoon before CPS comes back. I need answers. There was a heavy sigh on the other end. I'll see what I can do. When the sun rose, Michael was still in his study, surrounded by papers, letters, and a growing sense that he was racing against time. He went up to Sophia's room, just to make sure she was okay. The girl was sleeping soundly, clutching her new teddy bear, and there was something so pure in that scene that Michael felt a fierce determination settle in him. No one was taking that girl from here. No one. Regina arrived early to make breakfast and found Michael in the kitchen, drinking his 5th cup of black coffee of the night. Mr. Taylor, you haven't slept at all, she said, concerned. That's not good for you. I can't sleep, Regina. I have too much to figure out. Regina sat down across from him, her calloused hands holding her cup. Can I ask you something? Why are you doing all this? I mean, it's beautiful what you're doing for the girl, but why so much dedication so quickly? Michael looked at the cook, this simple woman who had worked in the house for so many years, and decided to trust her. Because I think Sophia is Beatrice's niece, the daughter of her sister Camilla, and Beatrice left me clues so that I would find her, so that I would take care of her. Regina's eyes widened. Mrs. Beatrice had a sister? She did. But they were distant. Or at least, that's what I thought. In reality, Beatrice was protecting her sister from something. From someone. Regina was silent for a moment, processing. And does the girl know this? No, she doesn't know anything, and I'm not going to. Tell her until I'm sure of everything. I don't want to create expectations and then... He paused, his voice breaking. And then have to take her away from here. Regina reached out and squeezed Michael's hand firmly. You'll succeed, sir. I know you will. Because you have something that many people have lost, a heart that still knows how to care. At that moment, Julianne entered the kitchen. Her face was pale, her eyes red as if she had been crying, but her posture remained rigid. Mr. Taylor, I need to speak with you in private. Michael exchanged a look with Regina and stood up. You can speak here, Julianne. Regina is trustworthy. Julianne hesitated, but then sighed, as if carrying a weight too heavy to bear. I need to confess something. Something I've been hiding for years. And that, because of the girl, I can't hide anymore. Michael felt his heart race. I'm listening. Julianne pulled out a chair and sat down, her hands trembling on the table. I knew Camilla, Mrs. Beatrice's sister. She worked here in this house 6 years ago. She was Mrs. Beatrice's personal secretary. They were very close, but they kept it a secret because Camilla was running from someone, from a powerful man, a man who got her pregnant by force and then wanted her to get rid of the baby. Michael felt nauseous. Go on. Camilla refused. She ran away. She came to hide here with her sister. Mrs. Beatrice took care of everything, paid for prenatal care in secret, arranged for a private midwife. Sophia was born here, in this house, in one of the back rooms. I helped with the delivery. I saw that little girl being born. Tears began to stream down Julianne's face, finally breaking her mask of coldness. But 3 days later, he found out. I don't know how, but he found out. He sent men here. He threatened to sue, to destroy Mrs. Beatrice's reputation, to take everything from you. He said he would accuse Camilla of kidnapping her own child, that he would make her look crazy, unfit, and that if she didn't hand over the baby, he would do worse things. Michael was white as a sheet. And what happened? Camilla had no choice. She had to run again, this time without her daughter. Mrs. Beatrice promised. She would take care of the girl, that she would find a way to keep her safe. She gave Sophia to Helen, the nurse who helped with the birth. Helen agreed to raise the girl in secret, far from New York, far from any record that could be traced. And this man, Michael asked, his voice dangerous. Who is he? Julianne swallowed hard, looking around as if afraid of being overheard. It's Mr. Rick, sir, your cousin. He's Sophia's father. The silence that fell over the kitchen was deafening. Regina put a hand to her mouth, shocked. Michael felt the world spin, reality rearranging itself in a grotesque and painful way. Rick, his cousin, the man who walked around the house as if he owned it, the man who brought CPS yesterday, the man who was desperate to get Sophia out of there. Now it all made sense, a horrible but logical sense. Why did you never tell me? Michael asked, his voice low but filled with restrained anger. Because Mrs. Beatrice made me promise. She said telling would put the girl in danger. She said Rick was dangerous, that he had connections, that he could do terrible things, and Julianne looked down ashamed. Because he paid me. He paid me very well to keep quiet, and I needed the money. My mother was sick, the bills. I was a coward, sir. I was a coward, and now this little girl is paying the price. Michael stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. Rick raped Camilla, forced her to run, threatened to destroy everything. And you stayed silent because he paid you. I know I have no excuse, Julianne sobbed. I know I was an accomplice, but now that I've seen the girl, now that I've seen her stir up all that pain again, I can't anymore. I can't let him take her. Because if he takes her, sir, he will make her disappear. He made that very clear yesterday when he called me. He said that if the girl stays here, she will ruin everything he's built. His reputation, his position in the company, everything. Michael was trembling with rage, but also with something stronger, a murderous determination to protect Sophia at all costs. Where is Camilla now? Julianne shook her head. I don't know. Mrs. Beatrice kept in touch, but after she passed, I lost track. I only know she's still alive somewhere in hiding, waiting for the moment she can return to her daughter. Michael took a deep breath, trying to organize his thoughts. There were so many emotions crashing inside him, he could barely think straight. Anger at Rick, anger at Julianne, pain for Beatrice having carried this alone, fear for Sophia, and a visceral need for justice. You're going to testify, Michael said, his voice firm. You're going to tell all of this officially. You're going to give your testimony about what Rick did. Julianne nodded, tears still, streaming. I will. I'll do whatever it takes to fix what I did wrong. At that moment, Sophia appeared at the kitchen door, still in her pajamas, rubbing her sleepy eyes. She looked at the three adults, sensed the tension in the air, and stood there, uncertain. Did something happen? She asked in her tiny voice. Michael quickly composed his expression, forcing a smile. No, sweetie. Everything's fine. Come have breakfast. Sophia walked slowly to the table, and Regina, though shaken, began to prepare the girl's plate with her usual care. But there was something different in the air, and Sophia, even as a child, could feel it. She ate in silence, looking from one adult to another, trying to decipher what was happening. After breakfast, Michael received the call he had been waiting for. It was Gerald. "Sir, I found something on Camilla. She's alive, hiding in a small town in rural Georgia. She's working under a false name at a local hospital. I got her contact information." Michael felt a wave of relief. "Give it to me." Gerald dictated the number, and Michael wrote it down with trembling hands. When he hung up, he stared at the number. For a long moment, this call could change everything. It could bring answers. It could reunite a mother and daughter, but it could also bring more danger. Still, he dialed. The phone rang 3 times before a woman's voice, tired but sweet, answered. "Hello? Camilla?" Michael asked. "My name is Michael Taylor. I am Beatrice's husband." There was a long silence on the other end, then a muffled sob. "Michael," she said, her voice breaking. "Beatrice talked so much about you, so much. I thought I would never hear your voice. Camilla, I have your daughter. Sophia is here at my house. She's safe." The crying on the other end grew louder, uncontrollable. Is she okay? Is she growing up well? Oh God, I thought I would never hear about her again." "She's okay, Camilla. She's beautiful, strong, brave. But I need you. I need your testimony against Rick. I need to prove that he's dangerous, that he can't get near her. Can you do that? Can you come here?" Camilla hesitated, and Michael could hear the fear in her voice. He'll find me. If I go back to New York, he'll know. And then he'll do what he always threatened to do. "I will protect you," Michael promised. "I'll protect both of you. But I need you, Camilla. Sophia needs you." There was a long silence. Then, with a trembling but determined voice, Camilla said, "I'll come. I'll get on the first bus. I'll be there tomorrow morning." Michael hung up and closed his eyes, gratitude and fear mixing in his chest. He had 24 hours to prepare for the war to come. Because when Rick found out that Camilla was coming back, when he found out that Michael knew everything, he would attack with everything he had. And Michael had to be ready. The rest of the day was a whirlwind of preparations. Michael called the best lawyers he knew, put together a legal strategy, gathered all the evidence he had: Beatrice's letters, Julianne's testimony, Sophia's partial birth certificate, documented threats. Gerald worked non-stop, organizing everything, preparing petitions, building defenses. Anthony, the gardener, when he learned everything, offered his own testimony. He had seen Rick threatening Camilla years ago, had overheard conversations, had witnessed things he didn't understand at the time, but that now made perfect sense. Regina prepared one, of the guest rooms for Camilla, changing all the linens, leaving fresh flowers as if preparing an altar for a sacred reunion. And Sophia, oblivious to everything being orchestrated around her, played in the garden with an innocence that broke Michael's heart. He watched her from the window, thinking about how to tell her, how to explain that she had a mother, that this mother had never abandoned her by choice, that this mother had always loved her, even from afar. When night fell, Michael decided it was time to prepare Sophia at least a little. He called her into his study, offered her hot chocolate, and sat beside her on the large leather sofa. "Sophia, I need to tell you something important," he began, choosing his words carefully. Sophia looked at him with those big eyes, and Michael saw so much trust there that he was afraid of breaking it. "Remember you said that Aunt Helen told you your mother was a very good lady?" Sophia nodded. "Well, I think I found your mother, Sophia, and she really wants to see you." Sophia froze, her hot chocolate stopping halfway to her mouth. My mom? She's alive?" "She is, and she never forgot you, never stopped loving you. She had to stay away because there were bad people who wanted to hurt you both. But now we're going to fix this, and she'll be able to hug you." Sophia began to tremble. The tears fell quickly, silently, and she set her cup aside with her small, shaking hands. Will she like me?" Michael pulled Sophia into a tight hug, feeling her small body shake with sobs. "She already loves you, Sophia. She always has, and tomorrow when she gets here you'll see it in Her eyes. Sophia cried for a long time, clinging to Michael as if he were the only solid thing in a world spinning too fast, and Michael held her, protecting her, silently promising that he wouldn't let anything bad happen. But outside, in the shadows of the night, Rick was in his apartment, on the phone, plotting his next move. He had found out that Michael was investigating. He had found out that Julianne had talked, and now he was mobilizing every resource he had, every connection, every favor owed. Because if there was one thing Rick Taylor didn't do, it was lose. And that girl, that living proof of his crime, could not exist. No way. The dawn arrived heavy, laden with foreboding. Michael had finally managed to sleep for a few hours, exhausted from all the planning, from preparing for the battle to come. But he woke with a start at 4 in the morning, his heart racing, a bad feeling in his gut. He got up, put on his robe, and walked to Sophia's room. The door was ajar, and when he looked inside, he saw the girl sleeping peacefully, clutching her teddy bear, completely oblivious to the danger surrounding her. Michael stood there for long minutes, just watching, etching the image into his memory, because he knew that from now on, nothing would be simple. It would no longer be just about caring for a child. It would be about fighting a system, a powerful man and lies built over years. He went down to the kitchen and found Regina already awake, making coffee. The cook had deep dark circles under her eyes, a sign that she hadn't slept well either. "Good morning, sir," she said, her voice tired but gentle. "Coffee?" "Please." They sat together, at the kitchen table, in the silence that only early mornings know. Regina stirred sugar into her coffee with slow, thoughtful movements. "Mr. Taylor, can I say something?" "Of course, Regina. You know I never meddle in the house's affairs. I've always just been the cook. I do my job and that's it, but this time I have to speak." She took a deep breath. "That little girl, she's affected everyone here. Even Mrs. Julianne, who has a heart of stone. And you, sir, you're different. You're more human, more alive. It's been a long time since I've seen you truly smile." Michael felt a lump in his throat. "I didn't remember what it was like either, Regina. To truly smile, to want to wake up in the morning, to feel like I have a purpose beyond working and accumulating more money. Sophia reminded me of what I lost when Beatrice passed. She reminded me what it's like to care about someone." Regina reached out and held Michael's hand firmly. "Then don't let them take her, sir. Fight with everything you have, because some things in life are priceless, and that little girl, she's not just any child. She's a chance for this whole family's redemption, a chance to fix what was broken." Michael squeezed Regina's hand, grateful for her words. "I will fight, Regina, to the end." The sun was rising when Michael's phone rang. It was Gerald, his voice tense. "Sir, we have a problem. Rick has filed a motion in court. He's claiming that Sophia is his daughter, that she was kidnapped at birth by Camilla, and that he has paternal rights over her. He has expensive lawyers, forged documents proving paternity, and paid off witnesses. He got ahead of us, sir. And the judge, assigned to the case, is known for following the law to the letter, without much consideration for the emotional side." Michael felt the floor drop out from under him. He can do that? He can just claim paternity after all these years? Technically, if he can prove he's the biological father, and if he claims the mother was unstable and abandoned the child, yes. And worse, he's requesting emergency custody, alleging that the girl is in an irregular situation at your house without proper documentation. The hearing is this afternoon at 3. "Today, but Camilla only arrives this morning." "No, sir. That's why we need to act fast, very fast." Michael hung up and slammed his fist on the table, startling Regina. Rage and desperation battled within him. Rick had played dirty, using every resource a rich, unscrupulous man could. And now, Michael had less than 12 hours to build a defense. He ran up to his study, woke up all the lawyers he had hired, and organized an emergency meeting. The whole house woke up with the commotion. Julianne appeared, her face pale but determined, ready to give her testimony. Anthony offered to go with them to the courthouse. Regina promised to take care of Sophia while everything was being sorted out. At 8 in the morning, a van pulled up in front of the mansion. A woman in her early 30s got out, thin, with long hair and deep dark circles under her eyes. Camilla. She looked at the house with a mixture of fear and hope, her legs trembling as she climbed the front steps. Michael met her at the door, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. Camilla had the same eyes as Beatrice, that same deep melancholy. She held out her hand, but Michael pulled her into a hug. "Thank you," Camilla whispered, crying. "Thank you for taking care of her. Thank you for being the man Beatrice always said you were." "No need to thank me," Michael said. "Let's go inside. Sophia is just waking up." When they entered the house, Sophia was in the foyer, in her pajamas, her hair messy, rubbing her eyes. And then she saw Camilla. Mother and daughter froze, staring at each other, and time seemed to stand still. Camilla fell to her knees, tears streaming uncontrollably. "Sophia?" she called, her voice breaking. My little girl." Sophia took a hesitant step, then another, and then she ran. She ran and threw herself into her mother's arms, and the two hugged as if they wanted to merge into one. Camilla held her tightly, kissing the top of her head, crying and laughing at the same time, repeating her name like a prayer. "I missed you so much, my love. So much. Every single day. Every day I thought of you, dreamed of you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't stay." Sophia cried, clinging to her mother, not fully understanding, but feeling that this hug was the most right thing in the world. It was as if a piece that had always been missing had finally clicked into place. Michael watched with tears in his eyes, and Regina, beside him, wiped her face with her apron. Even the rigid Julianne had watery eyes. But the happiness was short-lived, because at 10 in the morning 2 court officers arrived with a warrant. Sophia had to be taken to a temporary shelter until the afternoon hearing, where her fate would be decided. Michael tried to argue, tried to explain, but the law was clear. The girl was in an irregular situation, and until the court decided, she couldn't stay there. Camilla panicked, clutching Sophia tightly. "No, you're not taking her. I just found my daughter." But the officers were firm. They showed the warrant, explained they had no choice, that they were just following orders. Sophia started to cry, scared, not understanding what was happening. "Michael, please," Camilla begged. "Don't let them take her." Michael felt helpless, a feeling he hated. He, who had always controlled everything, who had always had power, could now do nothing to stop this. "We'll get her back," Michael promised, his voice firm despite his desperation. "At the hearing this afternoon, we'll prove everything, and Sophia will come home to both of you." Sophia was taken away crying, reaching her little arms out for Camilla and Michael. The sound of her cries echoed through the entire house, a sound no one there would ever forget. When the door closed, Camilla collapsed on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Michael knelt beside her, holding her as she fell apart. "We can't give up now, Camilla," he said. "We have a few hours. We need to prepare. We need to fight for her." Camilla looked up, her eyes red but with a fierce determination growing in them. "I'll tell everything. I'll expose everything he did. I'm not afraid anymore. Not after seeing my daughter. Not after feeling her in my arms again." The hearing was set for 3 in the afternoon at the New York County Supreme Court. Michael, Camilla, Julianne, Anthony, and the entire legal team arrived early, prepared for the legal battle to come. On the other side, Rick appeared impeccable in an Italian suit, flanked by 3 expensive lawyers, his face a mask of false paternal concern. When he saw Camilla, his eyes glinted with something dangerous. Well, look who decided to show up," he said, his voice low and venomous. "The mother who abandoned her own child." Camilla trembled but didn't back down. "I didn't abandon her. You forced me to run. You threatened me, you hunted me, and now you're going to pay for all of it." Rick laughed, a humorless sound. "We'll see who pays, Camilla. You against me? You with no money, no resources against the entire structure I have? Good luck." The hearing began, and it was brutal. Rick, through his lawyers, painted Camilla as an unstable woman who had gotten pregnant and then abandoned the child, leaving her on the streets. He presented false witnesses who claimed to have seen her leaving Sophia as a baby. He presented forged psychiatric reports, alleging she was unfit to care for a child. But then it was the defense's turn. Julianne took the stand and, in a firm voice, told everything. The rape, the threats, the secret birth, the money Rick paid her to stay silent. Anthony testified about the threats he had witnessed. Camilla, with tears streaming but her voice strong, narrated her years on the run, the constant fear, the pain of being away from her daughter. And Michael presented Beatrice's letters, each one irrefutable proof that Rick was dangerous, that he had manipulated, threatened, and destroyed lives. The courtroom fell into a heavy silence as everything was revealed. The judge, a 60-year-old woman with a stern face, leafed through the documents attentively, read the letters, and listened to recordings Gerald had obtained of Rick's compromising conversations. When she finished, she took off her glasses and looked at Rick with clear contempt. "Mr. Taylor, let me be clear. The evidence presented here not only refutes your claim of responsible paternity, but also paves the way for criminal charges against you. Rape, coercion, threats, fraud. The list is long." She banged her gavel. "I deny the request for emergency custody. The child, Sophia, will be placed under the temporary guardianship of Mr. Michael Taylor, who has demonstrated a safe and suitable environment, and I am ordering a full criminal investigation into Mr. Rick Taylor." Rick turned white. His lawyers tried to argue, but the judge cut them off firmly. "This hearing is adjourned. Next case." Outside the courthouse, Camilla collapsed into Michael's arms, crying with relief. Julianne was smiling. Regina, who had also come to testify, was crying. Anthony shook Michael's hand firmly. "You did it, sir. You did it." "We did it," Michael corrected. "All of us." They went to pick up Sophia from the shelter, and when the girl saw Camilla and Michael together, she ran with all the strength in her short legs and threw herself into their arms. The three of them hugged right there on the sidewalk as the sun set in shades of orange and red over New York City, painting the sky like a promise of a new beginning. 3 months had passed since that life-changing hearing. Autumn arrived gently in New York, painting the trees of the Upper East Side in shades of gold and red, as if nature itself were celebrating the new beginnings taking place in the mansion that was once just large and empty, but now pulsed with life. Sophia woke up every morning in the room Michael had decorated especially for her, painted light pink with golden stars on the ceiling that glowed in the dark when she turned off the light. Her room was next to Camilla's, and many nights Sophia would still wake up from nightmares of the streets and run to her mother's bed. Camilla never complained. She would just open her arms and hold her until sleep returned, whispering words of love and protection that tried to erase the years of forced absence. On that particular April morning, Sophia woke up differently. She didn't run to her mother's room. She didn't have a nightmare. For the first time since she had arrived in that house, she woke up peacefully, with a smile on her face, and came down the stairs, skipping 2 steps at a time, her loose hair flying behind her. "Good morning, Regina," she shouted as she entered the kitchen, throwing herself into the cook's arms. Regina laughed, that hearty laugh that filled the kitchen with warmth. "Good morning, my princess. Already so excited this early?" "Today is a special day," Sophia announced, her eyes shining. "Aunt Isabella is coming." Isabella, Michael's daughter, had returned from Barcelona 2 weeks earlier after 3 years of living abroad. The reunion between father and daughter had been tense at first, full of silences and unspoken words. But Sophia, with her infectious innocence and joy, had been the bridge they needed. Isabella, at 23, had immediately fallen in love with the little girl, and now came over every day to spend time with the half-sister she never imagined she'd have. Michael entered the kitchen at that moment, already dressed for work, but with a relaxed smile he hadn't worn in years. Since Sophia had come into his life, he had changed. He worked less, smiled more, and for the first time since Beatrice passed, he allowed himself to be happy without guilt. "Good morning, everyone," he said, kissing the top of Sophia's head. "Sleep well, little one." "I did, and I didn't." "Have any nightmares?" Sophia announced, proud of herself. Michael exchanged an emotional look with Camilla, who had just entered the kitchen. This was an important milestone. For the first time, Sophia had spent an entire night without the ghosts of her past haunting her. Camilla had changed too. Her hair was cut in a modern style, her eyes had regained their sparkle, and the unhealthy thinness had given way to a healthy glow. She now worked as a volunteer nurse at a community clinic that Michael had helped fund, finding purpose in caring for others who, like her, had been through difficult situations. The relationship between Camilla and Michael was complex but beautiful. It wasn't romantic, at least not yet, but there was a deep complicity, a partnership that went beyond the obvious. They were co-parenting Sophia, but they were also friends, united by the memory of Beatrice and the determination to give Sophia the childhood she deserved. As they had breakfast together, Sophia excitedly talked about the drawing she had made at school, about the teacher who had praised her reading, about the new friend she had made. Every small victory was celebrated like a miracle in that house, because everyone there knew how far Sophia had come since that cold Christmas Eve. Rick, on the other hand, had fallen into complete disgrace. The criminal investigation was moving forward, and new victims had come forward. Women he had threatened and manipulated over the years. The company had cut all ties with him, and his reputation was destroyed. He would face trial soon, and the evidence was overwhelming. Michael didn't feel pity. He felt justice. Julianne still worked at the house, but now as part of the family, no longer as a mere employee. She had become a sort of grandmother to Sophia, teaching her things she had learned from her own mother, telling old stories and caring for her with a tenderness no one knew she possessed. The money Rick had paid her, she had donated in full to charities that helped female victims of violence, in an attempt at redemption that, while it couldn't erase the past, helped build a better future. Anthony continued to tend the garden, but now he had a special helper. Sophia loved to play in the dirt with him, planting flowers, watering the plants. The gardener taught her about patience, about how good things take time to grow, about how you need to care for things with love to see results. And Sophia, with her childlike wisdom, understood perfectly. That afternoon, when Isabella arrived, bringing gifts and hugs, the whole house filled with laughter. The two sisters played in the garden, running among the rose bushes, the older one pretending she couldn't catch the younger one, letting Sophia win and celebrate as if she had conquered the world. Michael and Camilla watched from the porch, sitting side by side, and Camilla said softly, "Thank you for all of this. For giving her what? I couldn't." Michael shook his head. "You gave her the most important thing, Camilla. You gave her you, your love, your courage to come back despite your fear. That's worth more than anything I could ever offer." Camilla smiled, and for the first time in years, it was a complete smile without shadows. "You know, Beatrice once told me you were the most honorable man she knew, that you had a huge heart hidden behind all those walls. She was right. She was always right about people." Michael felt his eyes sting. "She left me a gift, you know. She left Sophia to find me exactly when I needed her most. When I was so lost I didn't even know how to get back to life. Sophia saved me as much as I saved her." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the girls play, and there was peace in that silence. A peace that came from battles won, wounds healed, and forgiveness given and received. That evening, Michael organized a special dinner. He invited Regina and Anthony to sit at the table with them, not as employees, but as family. Because that's what they were, a chosen family, built not on blood, but on love and loyalty. The table was beautiful, filled with delicious food, fresh flowers, and lit candles. Sophia sat between Camilla and Isabella, radiant with happiness at being surrounded by so much love. Julianne, sitting next to Anthony, smiled more than anyone had seen her smile in years. Before they started eating, Michael stood up, holding a glass of juice, since Sophia was present, and they had agreed to a non-alcoholic toast so she could participate. "I'd like to make a toast," he said, his voice emotional. "A toast to Sophia, who taught us that family isn't just about who gave you life, but about who chooses to stay when life gets hard. A toast to Camilla, who had the courage to come back and fight for her daughter. A toast to all of us, who have learned that true love means protecting, caring, and never giving up." Everyone raised their glasses, and Sophia, in her clear little voice, added, "And a toast to Aunt Beatrice, who's in heaven, but I know she's happy watching us." There was an emotional silence. Michael felt a tear roll down his cheek, but it was a good tear, one of gratitude. "To Beatrice," they all said together and toasted. During dinner, Sophia told a story that made everyone laugh. She talked about a boy at school who had pulled her hair, and instead of crying, she had told him that hair wasn't for pulling, it was for combing, and the boy had been so embarrassed that he had apologized. Regina applauded, saying that Sophia was becoming a strong woman who knew how to defend herself without violence. Isabella, in turn, announced that she had decided to move back to the States for good. Barcelona was beautiful, but her place was here, with her father, with Sophia. She had projects, she wanted to work with Michael at the company, but she also wanted to start a foundation to help vulnerable children, because Sophia had shown her that saving a single life can change the entire world. Michael looked at his daughter with pride. Isabella had grown up, had matured, and they were finally rebuilding the bridge that their grief for Beatrice had broken. After dinner, when Sophia was getting sleepy, Camilla took her to her room. She gave her a bath, dressed her in her favorite unicorn pajamas, and tucked her into bed. Sophia held her mother's hand, her eyes already closing. "Mum," she murmured, "you're going to stay here forever, right? You're not going to leave again?" Camilla kissed her forehead, her heart aching. "I'm staying forever, my love. Always. No matter what happens, I'll be here. I promise." Sophia smiled, satisfied, and fell asleep in seconds, secure in the love that surrounded her. When Camilla left the room, she found Michael in the hallway. He was leaning against the wall waiting, and there was something different in his eyes, something Camilla had started to notice in recent weeks, but that neither of them had dared to name. "Is she asleep?" he asked softly. "She is, and happy." Camilla smiled. "Michael, I wanted to thank you, again, for everything, for being the family she needed when I couldn't be here." Michael took a step closer, and there was a tenderness in his gaze that made Camilla's heart race. "Camilla, you know that. That Sophia isn't the only one who found a family here, right? You did too. You're a part of all this. And I can't imagine this house without you anymore." Camilla felt tears well up. "Me neither, Michael. I'm afraid to say it, to ruin what we have, but you've become so important to me, not just as Sophia's father, but as a person, as a man, as a friend, as—" She trailed off, not daring to finish. Michael held her face gently. "As what, Camilla? Finish the sentence." Camilla took a deep breath. "As someone I could love, if you'd let me, if it wasn't too crazy." Michael smiled, that beautiful smile that Beatrice had always loved, and that now shone for another woman who deserved to be loved. "It's not crazy, Camilla. It's the most right thing I've felt in years." And he kissed her gently, respectfully, full of promise. It was a kiss of new beginnings, a kiss that didn't erase the past, but honored it, because Beatrice had brought them together, had created this story, and somehow, wherever she was, Michael knew she was happy. The months that followed were ones of healing and building. Michael and Camilla started a relationship slowly, respecting Sophia's pace, making sure she understood and accepted it, and Sophia, with the wisdom of a child who has seen too, much embraced their love with joy, because she understood that love is not a limited resource. The more love there is, the more love there can be. Isabella became the perfect older sister, protective but fun, teaching Sophia about life while learning from the girl's resilience. They became inseparable, and Michael would often find them laughing together at some inside joke, conspiring about a surprise for him or Camilla. The house that was once a mausoleum of sad memories had transformed into a home. A loud home full of laughter, silly arguments about which movie to watch, family dinners where everyone talked at once, and lazy Sunday mornings where Sophia would jump on Michael and Camilla's bed asking for pancakes. Regina continued to cook, but now, with more joy, Because cooking for happy people is completely different from cooking out of obligation, Anthony planted a special garden for Sophia, full of colorful flowers and a swing hanging from the oldest tree, where the girl would spend hours reading the books Isabella bought for her. Julianne, on a winter afternoon, sat down with Camilla and for the first time truly apologized. She apologized for staying silent, for taking Rick's money, for being a passive accomplice. And Camilla, who had learned that forgiveness frees the forgiver more than the forgiven, hugged the housekeeper and said that the past was the past, and what mattered was who they chose to be from now on. At Rick's trial, which took place almost a year after that Christmas Eve, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison for rape, coercion, threats, and a series of other crimes discovered during the investigation. Michael and Camilla didn't attend the trial. They didn't need to. Justice had been served and they were too busy building the future to be tied to the past. Sophia grew up strong and happy. She did well in school, made friends easily, and whenever someone asked about her family, she would say with pride, "I have a mom who is the bravest in the world, a stepdad who saved me, a sister who is my best friend, and a bunch of people who love me. I'm the luckiest girl in America." And it was true. On a warm December evening, exactly 1 year after that life-changing Christmas Eve, the whole family was gathered in the garden. Michael had organized a small party just for the people who truly mattered. There were lights strung in the trees, soft music playing, and a table laden with delicious food. Sophia, now 6, ran through the garden with boundless energy, chasing fireflies, laughing in that way only happy children can. Isabella ran after her, pretending to be a monster, making the little girl shriek with joy. Michael and Camilla sat on a wooden bench, watching it all, holding hands. Michael looked at the woman beside him, this woman who had entered his life through impossible circumstances, but was now an essential part of it, and said, "You know what I've learned this year?" Camilla turned to him, curious. "What?" "That life has a strange way of fixing what's broken. We lose, but we also gain. We suffer, but we also heal. And sometimes the happy ending isn't what we imagined, but it's exactly what we needed." Camilla smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. Beatrice knew that. She orchestrated all of this, didn't she? She knew Sophia would bring us together, that she would bring light back into this house, that she would heal you as much as she would save her. Michael kissed the top of Camilla's head. She knew, and I'm eternally grateful to her, for giving me you and Sophia, for showing me that I could love again, that I could be a family again, that I could be happy again. At that moment, Sophia ran up to them, throwing herself into Michael's lap with force. "Look, Dad," she said, and the word Dad came out so naturally it made Michael's heart nearly burst with emotion. "I caught 5 fireflies, 5. Michael hugged the girl tightly, breathing in the scent of the strawberry shampoo Camilla used on her. "You're amazing, little one, amazing." Sophia turned to Camilla and hugged her mother too, creating a hug sandwich among the 3 of them. "I love you guys," she said simply, with the raw honesty only children possess. "And we love you more," Camilla and Michael said together. Isabella took a picture of that moment and later showed it to Regina, Anthony, and Julianne, who were sitting at a nearby table, all with teary eyes. "This picture," Isabella said, "is going in the living room. So we never forget that family is about choosing to stay, choosing to love, choosing to fight. Not about blood, about heart." The night went on with laughter, stories, and plans for the future. Michael announced he would cut back his work hours even more to spend more time with his family. Camilla talked about a new project at the community clinic. Isabella shared her plans for the foundation she was starting. Sophia just listened to it all, absorbing the love, the security, etching it into her memory so she would never forget what it feels like to have a real home. When the party ended and everyone went to bed, Michael stayed alone in the garden for a few minutes. He looked up at the starry sky and whispered, "Thank you, Beatrice, for everything, for trusting me, for giving me the chance to be a father again, to love again, to live again. I hope you're proud. I hope that wherever you are, you know that I kept my promise. Sophia is safe, loved, happy, and so am I." A gentle breeze blew, rustling the leaves in the trees, and Michael smiled. It was as if Beatrice were saying, "I know, and I'm happy." He went inside, walked slowly up the stairs, and stopped at the door to Sophia's room. The girl was sleeping soundly, clutching her teddy bear, a small smile on her face. Camilla was sitting in a chair beside the bed, just watching her daughter sleep, as if she still couldn't believe it was real. Michael sat beside her, and the two of them stayed there in silence, just watching the little girl who had changed everything. The little girl who had knocked on a door on Christmas Eve asking for food, and had found so much more. She had found a family. She had found love. She had found a home, and as Sophia dreamed of, and as fireflies and gardens full of flowers, as Camilla and Michael watched over her sleep, as the whole house breathed peace and contentment, a truth was solidified. Some stories don't start beautifully, but that doesn't stop them from having a happy ending. Because a happy ending isn't about perfection, it's about healing. It's about new beginnings. It's about finding light even after so much darkness. It's about discovering that no matter how broken you are, it's always possible to rise again with the help of the right people. And in that house on the Upper East Side, in that patched together but whole family, a happy ending wasn't just a distant possibility. It was the reality they lived every day, in every hug, in every laugh, in every "I love you" whispered before bed. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Sophia, Michael, and Camilla touched your heart. If you were moved by this journey of love, courage, and new beginnings, click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what part of the story resonated with you most. Was it Camilla's courage, Michael's transformation, Sophia's resilience? Every day we bring you intense stories like this one, revealing the deepest side of the human soul, showing that no matter how difficult the beginning, there is always hope for a happy ending. We'll see you in the next episode, with more stories that will move, inspire, and make you believe that true love always wins.